So I hit my goal of knowing when the video was going to end for one video. And I also, by the time I noticed that the video had ended, um, developed the next technology, which was mass production. And mass production doesn't create mechanized infantries, it creates um, metros, subways. No, I want. I think I want one more of their cities before I want to sue for peace. That could have backfired, but it didn't. One of the things that I would really not like to happen is for the Mongols to take one of my cities, because they inevitably would take armor, and that just makes beating them a little bit harder. Um, it doesn't make they're certainly not going to come from behind and win, but it's just going to make them more annoying. I guess anything's possible, but it would be a massive failure on my part to let them come back. At this point, I am going to, however, buy a defensive unit just in case. I'm not going to have that transport and go over with only one unit. I'm going to make sure it has at least two. I think I have one armor built, so I'm going to have a second one. Um, I'll move this just temporarily, because he could enter this city with a trireme, I think. So I don't want him to do that. Good thing I built that tank for my just in case. So I told you that mass transit was the advance that I made um, instead of creating mechanized infantry. It's mass transit. It's subways. And notice that the pollution has gone dramatically down. So I can bring my shields back up to produce more stuff. I think somebody was building all of those advances. I'm going to build temple because hopefully one of those guys goes away with a temple. Toronto by far is the civilization's best um, best city, and in terms of population and a variety of other things, I think you could say the same for the real Toronto, as they call it the cleaner New York, right? And it absolutely is a very clean city. Been there a number of times. Always was impressed by just how clean a city, while also being a big city, it is. Seattle. Seattle reminds me a little bit of Toronto in terms of its cleanliness, and how it's all connected together. I think one of the things that Seattle has going really well for it is its mass. Well, now talking about mass transit, its mass transit system, and um, how they get around and things like that. I was just always impressed by Seattle's transportation system and things like that. I always thought that was kind of neat. Um, and I remember when I went to Seattle and Toronto in, I think, back-to-back years, and I found just a lot of similarities between the two cities. I hope I hope people from Toronto aren't insulted to be compared to Seattle, and people from Seattle aren't insulted to be compared to Toronto. They both have, very interestingly, a tower that I'm not going to say looks exactly alike for each other, but there's some similarities between the Space Needle and the CN Tower. I think people would agree with that without being upset. In 2021, you can hardly say almost anything without someone taking offense. Um, so I hope nobody does. But if you do, I'm sorry. It's just my opinion. And I'm trying to compliment both of your cities by saying how easy it was to get from point A to point B in them. Um, I wish more cities would be like that. Winnipeg, I know you built. So maybe I'm going to build a city up here. That might be something to do. Call it what is it? Yellow horse, yellow knife. What are the Northwest Territories? Since that's kind of the northwest of my, I should probably name it for the capital of the Northwest Territories. I forget the name of it. I want to say it's something with a color in the name. Yellowknife. Does it sound familiar to you? Some of you are like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I used to know them all. I was a pretty decent geography student growing up. And I think civilization had a lot to do with it was me being young and learning about ancient history and world wonders and musketeers and cannons and cathedrals. And a little bit of it also came with um, I'm building a diplomat because eventually I want to talk to the Russians. Where is that militia? Is he over here? Yeah, there he is. So, civilization helped me enjoy and learn about world culture and the geography of places. I am not giving you money. I'll have to slap them around a little bit, I guess. So I'll wait for the other groups to come over here. So what was I building here? A courthouse again. I could build several things. That's just one of them. And I'm finally building. Remember, I said I wanted to build a railroad around, and I'm finally doing that over here. Should probably build a city up here as well. That's a good defensive unit. I'm going to build a Coliseum. Coliseum. Sentry is different than fortify. They basically do the same thing. You have orders to sentry a unit or to fortify a unit. I can't do that with a settler because F would be to build a forest. But for every other unit, F fortifies, which basically means it stays in a city and constantly is on defense. Where if I sentry, it stays in a city, and if an enemy unit approaches, it'll wake up. And then you can choose it to go on defense or choose it to go on offense. So generally, if you have an offensive unit like a tank or a chariot or a set of knights, you sentry them. But if you have a defensive unit, you fortify them because you would always choose to fortify. Oh, I guess I didn't turn this off. What do I want to do? I want to make the path a little bit better. Make my columns a little bit bigger. I'll make my columns bigger. With a little, I forget the name of this part of architecture. The triangular pyramid-like roof has a name, and I forget the name of it. Put it in the comments below if you know the name of it. I could Google it, but I'm not going to. Alright, Toronto has a tank out already, so I'm not going to build a second one, although I could. I swear somebody was building Darwin's Voyage. I guess Toronto, you'll be on that. Get on that, Toronto. Darwin. Let me check the year that this actually is. This might be one of the few times that we're doing something after the actual event happened. Okay, it's in the northeast of the country. See marketplace. Oh wait. Is this one more? You can move. Oh wait, one more turn. Alright, so you have more fight. You don't. Attack the cavalry first because it has a 2 in attack. The militia has 1. Always a good strategy to attack the unit that has a better chance of beating you if they were to attack. Suggested strategy number 705 of the play. Mongol government changes to republic. That's helpful for me. It's helpful for me because republic has war weariness, which means any nope. I don't know how they could possibly do that because I can't do that, but that obviously that doesn't mean that it's impossible. Where they could revolt when it's not their turn. Because I moved my tank there and automatically they went into revolt. And that's impossible for a human player. So that's a little unfair, but I can't complain. It is 1792. 1792. Did Darwin have his voyage before 1792? I'd have to Google it, and my estimate is no. I want to say he had his main voyage on the, what was the name of this ship? The Beagle? I'm going to guess the Beagle. It was something like that. It was a strange animal. And he went to the Galapagos Islands, I want to say, and that's where he did his study of finches. That's a question mark. I'm not quite sure. I think it's finches. It's going to be a little bit harder to take Samarkand because of the city walls. Although I thought that city walls were not as I thought that city walls don't bother tanks. Oh, wow. I mean, it's understandable that one of them would have lost to a spearman, but not 3 tanks. That's just ridiculous.